up all the time. The gates we storm tonight. Blind to the red. Let's see it comes back in. Well, they won't stop us now. We're untied and pushing out. Oh, on and on, going far too rigid out on our own, fire on the land, smoldering red. No, you can't hold us ever. We are the tide and on, going far too rigid out on our own, fire on the land, smoldering red. No, you can't hold us ever. We are the tide tonight.
What up? What up? It's your boy Conserviz 34. Actually, let me turn this down a little bit. Thank you guys for joining the concert review I have of the Tab and Goose show that I went to yesterday at one of my favorite places to see concerts, which is Mohegan Sun Arena. It's been voted like the best arena in the world, 2021, I believe, and I think a couple other years too. Now, I will say that there were some things I'll get into that I didn't like about this specific show and the way the getting in and getting out. But to give you guys a little bit of an outline, if you're watching this, you were searching Tab, Goose, anything like that, and this came to this video, Conserviz 34. I am a concert junkie. I try to see everything and anything I can see. First concert was major concert, Lincoln Park Project Revolution in 2008, right after I graduated high school. And I've been going to everything possible since. It's huge into hip hop back in that 2008 to about 2014, 15 era, going to shows like that. Alternative rock from Blink 182 to Taking Back Sunday to Weezer to Green Day. Dave Matthews Band is probably the biggest thing that I do on this. It is the biggest thing I do on this channel, but the most, comprehensive coverage I have is of Dave Matthews Band. But I love the blues, BB King, Buddy Guy, seen them. Huge John Mayer fan as well. Into some of with the Linkin Park, some of the new metal spinoffs and things like that. Into some of the harder rock like Disturbed and Breaking Benjamin back in my middle school days. And country, I mean, I love Chris Stapleton, Sergio Simpson are two acts I like. I don't like the overall country scene, but I love some of those artists who, Jason Isbell, I'm going to get into next as far as that's the next country artist. But I love country that is truly country and that has a little bit of that southern rock flair, and that's about the musicianship, not about cowboy boots and all that. Um, Jam bands are something I got into in the last decade. Something that my dad didn't grow up listening to the Grateful Dead. Okay, he was listening to Stevie Wonder and Earth, Wind and Fire, and over here to my right I have a bunch of vinyls from there of that. So the jam band thing is in the last decade. It starts off with I mean I guess behind me you see the Allman Brothers Band poster. Um, Tedeschi Trucks came off of that, a spin-off Government Mule off of that. Humphreys McGee and String Cheese Incident are two other bands that I got into in the jam band world, and of course the Dead and Company. And I haven't seen J Rad. Joe Russo's almost dead, but I am hoping to get to a show soon. But Dead and Company and Phil Lesh and Friends, other acts I saw live, and started to understand what this whole thing was about. And one thing I've loved about just going to see these shows in the jam band universe is no show is exactly the same in a sense. And I love that idea of chasing just a new experience every night. Being someone that for most of my life was listening to mainstream music, where you see that artist, they're playing the same set every night. So that's a little bit of a background into my musical experience. Now, in the last I would say 2 years. All right, I've been trying to get into Phish for probably the last decade. I just never could get to it. I play guitar myself as well, and I was, I as I've learned new things, it's helped me to also understand the music better. And during the pandemic, I got into Phish in 2020, late 20, mid to late 2020, 2021. I really started like, oh no, correction, 2021 is when I got into to Phish, not 2020. But the pandemic did open up my musical experiences, and so I get into listening to Phish on a road trip in 2021. I've had a couple of videos. I call it the Phish Noob series, just kind of breaking down my experiences. So this year, 2022, my goal was to really start to see some new jam bands as far as uh, Phish at MSG. Went to the last show of the MSG run that was rescheduled. And then, I mean, I've been hearing so much about Goose. I'm from Connecticut. There are people I know in the music scenes here that I see at other concerts that say, hey, you got to see Goose. One of my friends, has been following Goose since they were playing clubs. Shout out to Nick B. And he's in Vermont now, but from Connecticut originally, like me. And so he helped me. My first show was the um, Labor Day weekend. No, Memorial Day weekend. So my first show was May 27th. This was my first Goose show right here. I regret not going the second night. As you guys saw, I had the Into the Miss intro. One of the first, obviously, first album I heard was, had Into the Miss, and I went through their catalog from beginning to end. So yeah, this was my first show. Got the Atlas Wood Brothers cover. I've seen the Wood Brothers too. I love the Wood Brothers. Um, and so this was my first show. Atlas cover, Rockdale Encore. The next night was just far superior, and I wish I would have went. Let me go to this here. Right. I don't know why it's doing this, but yeah. So that's a little background on where I'm coming from. And I want to explain that because, I know a lot of people are diving into the crates and the catalogs of Goose shows and listen to the streams or on Bandcamp every night. I'm not there yet. I've been listening to some of the stuff on YouTube, some of the archive.org taper audio, and just really getting into Bandcamp like today. To just now that I've been to a couple. This is my second Goose experience. So now I'm on to the Bandcamp thing to listen to all the shows. I have live Phish, so I listen to all the Phish shows. That I want to. Like I also am busy with other stuff, but I try to listen to some of the stuff, at least a song or two off most of the tour stops when I have time. We want to get to this November 12th show. So let's talk about Phish. What I want to do is I want to talk about first the one thing I will say is Mohegan was frustrating. If you went to the Mohegan show and that was your first experience at Mohegan, that is typically not how things run in Mohegan. It was so hard to get in. If you were not there like an hour and a half early, an hour, like if you weren't in line an hour and a half early, like before the show start time or projected start time of 7:15. Obviously they went on at 7:30. But if you were uh, you know, not there in well in advance of that. Like if you weren't there at like 6:30, if you weren't in line before 6:30, you saw the lines were horrible. I mean, they were horrible. It was hard to get in. That is not typical Mohegan. I've been to a bunch of shows, probably over a dozen at this point, been to basketball games there, tournaments there, and that was a horrible experience. I will say the people that were working there did not seem as good as I typically see. Maybe there's some turnover. Listen, in this economy, people are leaving that service industry of the casinos to work from home. So I think like the ticket scanning process like was so much more complicated. And I've seen sold out shows at Mohegan. I've seen Jay-Z there. I've seen Dave Matthews Band. I've seen Green Day there, and the whole place is sold out. And so that was just it was bad mismanagement. It was mismanagement uh, by the venue to really not really handle the crowds that they handle every. I mean, this is the one arena of the year. So anyway, that's just a little thing. If you were this is your first Mohegan show last night, even if you're a veteran of Phish or Goose, that is not the that's not the case. Okay, so let's talk about the Goose set here. And what I want to talk about is more just how I felt and kind of what I've observed of Goose. So first thing I want to talk about is before we're not even going to talk about the music just yet. But what's interesting about Goose, here's what's I've never felt this way really about a jam band. Most jam bands, they have good songs. Obviously, like if you listen to the music, they have good songs. But they don't like jam bands do not obviously have studio tracks that could be hit songs. What makes Goose stand out and why people are joining this train, I would have still joined this train even if they weren't like this. But I have friends who don't like jam bands. Like they love music, they're very talented. They write music, they play music, they're in studios. They just jam bands are not their scene. But they are hopping onto this Goose train because there is an element of Goose where when you listen to obviously the Dripfield album and even stuff before that, their individual songs are like any good indie rock band, right? Their groove jam band, groove rock, whatever you want to call it. And what I'm conflicted with Goose only going to two shows, right? I plan to go to more next year. I almost want to hear them play some of these songs just as they are like on the CD. Like I could almost, and again, this is just two shows in, or really a set and a half in. I could listen to them play a full set of just play it like the radio edit version or play it like the CD version. And then your second set, you do your jams because I love their jams too. But I'm conflicted because I'm glad that I got more, like I got some stuff from Dripfield, like Arrow and Dripfield, right? I love that I got those because I've been waiting to getting more into that. Obviously, again, you only go to two shows. You get what you get, and there's really one set here. But I love how like the Dripfield songs are just they're just good songs. Take away the fact they're a jam band. This they could pass at indie rock festival and just play their songs 4 or 5 minutes like they're on the CD, and people would love it, right? And they have the ability to have things that like animal creatures that I heard my first show, like those type of songs and the jams that develop around them. They also are a very fun jam band. But I'm conflicted as I listened to the set. That's what was going through my mind is I enjoyed it. It was great, but I could almost hear them playing a just and you could switch it up. You could have a song like Slow Ready be played one night. Obviously, you're not going to play them back to back nights, but during a tour, one show has it as the full CD version, and you don't do the extra stuff that they've done with Slow Ready, right? And actually, they played So Ready tonight. I just saw that on the set list. I did not buy the show tonight. I got too much going on, but I just could like I could really enjoy. And again, they're not going to do this, obviously, but it would be cool to just take in that song as it is. And even on the CD, I can listen to their studio stuff. Like a lot of jam bands, you're like, all right, just listen to the live stuff, right? Listen to Albany 97, right? Listen to Hartford 77 or Cornell 77 for the Grateful Dead, right? Um, but their studio stuff is so solid, and I think it's going to stand the test of time. I think you can listen to any of the studio cuts. I think 10 years from now, it's still going to be great. And sometimes, just sometimes, when you listen to a Grateful Dead album, I mean, they still have great albums, right? Or when you listen to a Phish album, it's not close to how great it is live. It doesn't have that same feeling, but I have a feeling from Goose when I listen to their CD cuts or studio or their album cuts, and I literally just like I have Arrow in my jogs, Slow Ready's been in my jogs, Into the Mist, Arcadia, these have been in my jogs. The studio cuts are in my jogs, just like any of the indie rock or the alt rock stuff I listen to. Like I have a revivalist song, I have a Spoon song that's in my playlist to get me moving. Goose has a unique feeling of that. Now let's talk about the jams, because the jams as well are just great in their own self. The way they evolve, the way they grow, they're fun. I know one thing we share, Goose, the crew is around my age. I'm 32, right? I believe that's what I believe. They're around my age. We both went to the same Humphreys McGee shows, right? Maybe not. Maybe they probably went to much more than I did. But I was listening to Humphreys McGee, right? Just like they were listening to Humphreys McGee. So that's kind of cool because I love how they have these electronic type vibes that you have at an Humphreys show, and other jam bands do that. But I just love that, and some of the transitions that you get. So let's go. What I'm going to do is pull out. I recorded video. I know they have streams just so I could share this with you guys. But like, even let's look at Arrow right here. And let's get out to here because I love what they did with this. And I didn't get the full. I got the Arrow part until they went to the transition to Hollywood Nights. By the way, these lights were amazing. Like if we look at this, man, like I love the lighting rig. Obviously, this is it looks like some of the Phish lighting that because it's Tab is headlining, but the lighting was really cool. And I loved for the indoor feel, it just felt great for an indoor show because I only saw Goose outside before this. So this right here, this I love this. Let's take a quick listen here. So right here you get that right on the drums. And listen, I honestly don't. I know people say, listen, I know people said, well, we've had Twiddle's done this and Spatford's done this and this champion's done that. I don't care about any of them. Okay. Now I know again, no, listen, they're talented. Like I've heard some Twiddle like songs people have sent me. They're amazing. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. But when I'm at a Goose show, I know some people listen. Some people you're gonna be like, well, you're gonna compare it to this band and that band. You guys are you're 10 toes down in this jam band community. But to me, This is fun. And with Goose, their sets go by so fast. Like I forget that it's 10 to 15 minutes. And I think that's not a bad thing. You could be, oh, they're not like they don't their jams aren't as on point as Spatford or PPP, right? Or this band. I don't care. I don't care. I really don't care. This is just fun. This little jam, da da da, that 3 chord progression, and you just have Rick tearing it up here. And what's great about this is you still have that circle that's building up, just like any Goose jam or any jam band jam. But just like Trey utilizes these horns, it's a perfect guest spot. I've also seen them. Listen, they had Outcast, right? And I'm a huge AT Aliens, Aquemini, Southern Playalistic. Like I love those early, between those albums and A Tribe Called Quest, Low End Theory, and Midnight Marauders. That's the type of stuff that from my past musical dives I love. So like to see Outcast with them and them to be able to play with Outcast, to have a vocalist, was that I read in LA, right? Was that for Slow Ready? I believe it was. And then you have you have guests that have been with Goose all year in so many different varieties. What I will say though is as we get to the Trey guest spot, I felt like this was one of the weaker. Factory Fiction was great, but like I would have liked to have like 2 songs with Trey, and I felt like other shows in the tour had more comprehensive time with Trey than this Mohegan show. That's what I will say. And listen, every night, listen, they got a whole tour, and they're not going to really repeat much from what I believe. So I will say I enjoyed this Factory Fixing with Trey. But I think that like obviously Arcadia the night before, I would have took that over this just because, listen, that's Trey on one of those like really, really like popping Goose songs. So I will say that like this was a great experience. Like there's still great musical phrasing and collab. Let's listen to it. We'll listen to it in a second. But I will say that the first two shows, some of those collabs, I think were was like the better song in my opinion. But this was still a heck of a show and a heck of a collab here for Factory Fictions. Let's take a listen here. So I mean, I love this duo, of lead guitarists Trey and Rick. I love this. It gives me the in different ways. Like one of the things I've loved about seeing some of this live music from blues to the jam bands to rock is when you have two great guitarists on stage playing at the same time. I can think of obviously Almond, my first Allman Brothers band show in 2014, which was the last run of it. I wish I would have been able to see more of the Allman Brothers, but like having Derek Trucks and Warren Haynes on the same stage trading licks. When I think of Humphreys McGee, right, Brendan Bayliss and Jake Cunninger, again, a band that's influenced Goose. I love some of their harmonies and melodies. And I got this tonight. Again, like I said, I think some of the other ones were like the Arcadia, like, all I need. Are you kidding me? That all I need, that was in Maine. Like I would have traded this for that. But this is another display in a different way of how great they are. And it just gives you that special element. You're not going to get this at a Phish show. You're not going to even get this at a Tab show, right? Most likely that's just not how it's going to be. So to have the dueling guitars, bouncing licks off each other, like I've seen some of the blues artists do from BB King and Buddy Guy, and then rest in peace to BB King. I saw BB King play with a young blues player that opened his show. And he's in his 20s, but like there was a young kid who opened up. Oh, Quinn Sullivan, right? And to have Quinn and BB King trade licks like an old school and new school, that was kind of like a torch. Although Quinn Sullivan just, there's no way he can be as popular. The blues is not what it used to be. I mean, really, John Mayer may be the last big blues guitar player that has pop culture shaken up and stirred up. But anyway, I digress. But the point was like BB King was playing with this. The kid was like 9 or 10 at the time. Quinn Sullivan, he's not like in his 20s, but I saw them in 2010. I think he was 9 back then in February of 2010. And you have like the torch. We joke about the torch, but I love how Rick and Trey were able to exchange here and get those licks back and forth. So that, I mean, listen, the Goose set was great. I think other sets I would have preferred, but listen, it was still a great set. I love the vibes of the set, and I love Arrow and Dripfield. Just get that Dripfield album vibe. Animal was great. Flow Down is cool. And then obviously the Hollywood Nights cover, Factory Fish. I mean, just a good set. All right, let's get to we want to get to some of the tab stuff. Now, here's the thing about Trey Anastasio band. I mentioned this on Twitter the other day. The first thing I'll say is there are songs that I prefer so far in just my first year of going to shows. I prefer them. I like some of the stuff they've done in the tab setting versus the Phish setting. And again, this is my first year seeing them live. I've only been to two shows. I went to MSG, the last of the MSG run, and it was that April. And I went to Hartford, my local hometown show, Hartford, Connecticut show. So I didn't go to like Alpine or Deer Creek, right? I didn't go to some of the other. I didn't go to Atlantic City. So there's so much that you get in those weekends that maybe you don't get just from one MSG show and then a regular Sunday show, which never missed a Sunday show. But listen, they gave their heart out in Bethel the night 2 nights before. Those were just better shows, right? The jams are great in Hartford, but it just wasn't like you're not getting. Listen, it's just that's just how it is, right? Your Friday, Saturday are going to be more power shows. All right, so this song, No Men, No Men and No Man's Land. I heard this my first Phish show. I like Tab on it better. I love the horns. I love the jazzy feel of this song with Tab versus Phish. Now, again, I only heard it once, right? Maybe there's a version in this year that maybe that would have been a better hit, or if I saw it here, it would have hit better. But the MSG version was cool. This is better. Another song I will say like this with Tab that I like better with Tab, Gotta Jaboo. Heard of the MSG my first show, like it with Tab better. Love the jam section of Gotta Jaboo with Tab over the Phish version that I heard. Again, MSG. Last show, it was at 420 something. So let's listen a little bit to this. Also, keep in mind, Rick is on this too from Goose. So is Pete. And I believe the rest of the band was out there. Oh, yeah, Rick and Peter from Goose. Yep. So that adds another element of it too, where you're not getting that at a Phish show, and that's one of the knocks on. I mean, obviously, Phish is an amazing band, but you just have Trey, which in some ways is good because you don't have so much. What I love about Phish is sometimes it's nice, like just like a trio, like Rush. I've seen Rush live, R.I.P. to Neil Peart, and like a Jacob's Ladder. What I like what Rush does with just one guitar. Sometimes less is more. But a song like No Men and No Man's Land, I love the whole big band, jazzy, groovy feel of everyone on this. And even if we go back earlier in the song, having this vocal support, right? James Casey, Jennifer Hartswick, and Natalie Cressman, having them three here. You're not getting this at a Goose. I mean, of course you're not getting it at a Goose, but you're not getting this at a Phish show. And again, I think about a song like Divided Sky. It's best when you just have the elements of Phish. I love the trade-offs and the responsibility that the importance of every instrument when it's just the four homies in Phish. But a song like this, again, just it's better with having everyone there. So let's take a look and see if we can get some other. What else did I record? One thing I have to also credit Trey Anastasio band, the sound, whether it's the sound, whoever's in charge of the mix, and maybe some of that is Trey's decision making. I don't know, right? I am very, very picky when it comes to how you blend instruments. Today I just played a gig here at my church, right? I play every second and fourth Sunday at my church with youth church, and actually got some new. We got some people from a local college to come play because we've had trouble keeping keys players. And like one of the frustrations I have with gospel is the electric guitar is not mixed well in gospel, right? And I love how when you have a mix that's really good, how it works. Hey Shane, good to see you. Thanks for popping on. But I'm all about, like, to me, the mix of everyone and how they're included is sometimes more important than what you're playing. And that's why I love Phish, because I feel like every player in Phish has moments where they get to shine and you hear them. I'm from that Dave Matthews Band is the band I see the most. But one of the things that I constantly critique them on is they don't have the bass up that well at certain times. The acoustic guitar of Dave Matthews is overpowered sometimes. But what I love about Tab is it is the perfect mix of the horns and Dion Sandal says Goose. Dion Sandal, that's a good handle there. But it's amazing the sound, and I don't have an audio clip for showing this, but it's amazing how the sound is blended where I feel like Trey's guitar and the horns are balanced. I think that's extremely important because it could easily be something where Trey's guitar is too loud or um, the horns are too loud, but the balance of it is amazing with Tab. And I was so impressed. And I gotta say, now, first MSG show I was behind the stage in the upper level. I'm an MSG vet. I've seen everything in MSG except the dog show in hockey. Well, I'm a huge hockey fan. I haven't seen hockey there. I'm trying to get there. It's so expensive. But and Shane, the Glens Falls show isn't even sold out. There's a lot of tickets. It's tough. It's in the upstate New York past Saratoga. If you drive past, so Shane, you were at SPAC for DMB. If you drive like another 45 minutes to an hour, you drive up the highway, and Glens Falls is just up further north of Saratoga. But I think a lot of people just are. It's a Sunday show, football Sunday, a lot of sports and things like people just that show did not get the reception of Lowell and Portland and Mohegan. Those are right along an area where you have a lot of fans of Tab and Goose that were able to go. But so yeah, what did I say? Oh, Shane, you're from Lake Placid. Oh, you know then. I didn't realize you were from Lake Placid. Okay, so you know. All right, you're from upstate New York. So okay. Wow, I didn't know that. That's funny. Um, up 87. That's what it is. I-87. By the Adirondack Mountains. So anyway, I love how they're mixed, and it's crazy how I listen. I heard about James Casey, and I know he could play the sax. I think I heard some of the Tab. I think I tuned into some of the Tab set at what was that? Atlanta 420 Fest. Is that what they played? Which was funny because Goose and Tab were playing at the same time, and Trey's dad was at Goose. Trey's dad's like, Goose is better. Goose is better. Nah, I'm just kidding. But yeah, and Dion Sando says crazy how fast Goose is blowing. It is. It is amazing. And really, to me, it's not even the fact that the jam band community, it's people who don't go to jam band shows. Like some of the other jam bands like Twiddle, people who weren't into jam band. Oh, you were at 420, you were at Goose. So you know Dion, yeah, he stayed at Goose. But like Twiddle and all that stuff, as somebody who wasn't into jam bands, none of that stuff really reached me to drive me to go when Twiddle really was killing it. And I know they're talented. It was really within the jam band community. People who don't go to jam band shows, or listen, I like Dave Matthews, and people who are more Dave Matthews, Avid Brothers or Avid Brothers, right? Those type of bands who kind of mix up set lists, but they're not really jam bands. They don't do 50, like 25-minute jams on a regular basis. But people who like those type of like a bands, Avett Brothers and Dave Matt, like they're coming over to Goose in high numbers. But I knew like so I know James Casey. I followed the whole like I heard about him getting cancer and just how much of a just really how much of a amazing human he was to endure that difficult time when he was getting treatments and things like that, right? And so also Jennifer Hartwick, she's collabed with Brenda's Bayless of Humphreys McGee, and that's kind of how I heard about her. So I knew she was in Tab. I've heard great things. I've heard, listen, she can play that trumpet with that, like that she blows wind through that trumpet. And so all of them really, and listen, I'm a woodwind player. That's my OG origin of music. I play electric guitar, but in acoustic. But in high school, I was playing honors orchestra or symphonic band. Right, I was playing West Side Story at Disney at Epcot, like the whole suite from West Side Story. That's pretty good. Now, not so much. I don't know what happened to my clarinet. I don't know. I think my mom threw it away. I can't remember. But I used to have a private teacher for clarinet. I was really really good. So I understand how hard it is to have the chops to play in a horn section or play woodwind. So all three of them, Nat Cressman, Hartwick, and James Casey, they really can play through the instrument and just like laser beam air through it. But seeing it live is just a whole different level of respect. And Nat Cressman, I remember something happened where people were saying sexist stuff towards her a couple years ago. And I'm like, man, that's not right. And I looked that up and I kind of was like, yeah, like that's not cool. So I started following her because of that. She was talking about some of the sexism and things like that. But she and her father plays, I believe it. I don't know if it's I gotta check to see if she's still, but she was with Ian Aquafini or Inquafini. I've seen some of her stuff with Ian. I don't know if they're still. Let me see if I can find that here. But I just love the. Let's see, is she still with? Yeah, I think she's still with Ian. Yep, yep, she's still with Ian. Okay, so that's her. That's her boyfriend. Her man plays awesome Brazilian guitar. Ian Faquini. Sorry if you guys are watching this. My bad. But Ian Faquini, like I've seen her and Nat, like they're awesome. During the pandemic, they were playing, like they have such a wonderful chemistry on stage, and they're just both great musicians by themselves, both world class musicians. But Ian and Nat, I've seen their stuff before was even in the Tab, and I know she's been with Tab for a minute. I believe her uncle was what the old sax player. I think he passed away. Wasn't her uncle in Tab? I again, I'm just kind of off the cuff, but I love like Hartwick, and they all can sing. They all can sing. But Jennifer Hartwick, she is able to like, let alone her ability to play the trumpet. And then I heard her solo album a couple weeks ago, because what got me to that is she did a Dave Matthews Band cover of When I'm Weary. But she is such an amazing vocalist. And how often do you see someone who can sing as well as she can sing and just play a woodwind, right? You have a lot of guitar players that can sing and keyboardists, like pianists, but very rarely do you have someone that can sing at such a beautiful level as Jen does, and also just play the trumpet like no other person can play it. And so that's really what she does. And then Nat, what she does great. I love how Nat comes in with the trombone and she knows she's armed and knows how to use that trombone in the setting of Tab or in the setting of some sort of jam band, right? You can play the trombone in various settings, but to play it in a jam band setting, or even just I think about some of the trombone players that have played with the Dave Matthews Band as a guest. It's not easy to translate that trombone into a vehicle or tool to jam out on. And as we saw earlier in this stream, I played some of the stuff with Goose. She does a wonderful job of getting the timing, because that's the other thing is the timing, sliding in those positions on the trombone and doing it with a jam band of any kind is a hard thing. It's a hard ass. It's not the natural thing, right? It's like not the natural way of just, oh, a trombone was made to jam out on. So I really appreciate her ability to take that instrument. She knows how to utilize it for jams, and it creates a very unique sound. Tab has a very unique sound to take some of these Phish songs, take some of these covers, and just have it like no one else can do it. I think of Tedeschi Trucks Band as another band that's just fun, and Tab is just fun. And James Casey is just a wonderful sax player. The Barry sax that he was playing last night, oh, he was tearing it up on Barry. And I think that was what did he have the alto sax as well? I didn't see a soprano. I think it was an alto, but he had that baritone sax going down low in the bass clip, doing his thing. And what's cool about Tab is, like I said, my parents weren't listening to the Dead. They weren't listening to Zeppelin, none of that stuff. They were listening to R&B and soul and gospel. So I feel like I could take my parents who love music, I could take them to a Tab show. I could take my uncle who's Berkeley School of Music grad, just like James Casey, right? I could take him to a Tab show and he's gonna love it. I mean, my uncle could go to he likes he could go to Phish too. One of his best buddies was going to Phish shows. Uh, Shout out to Scott Willingham, right? Scott was telling me, because I befriended him as well, about he saw the jam band scene in the late 80s, early 90s. My uncle was around that time. They were both in late high school, early college when the jam band scene in New England was a whole special, unique thing that you take a snapshot, and if people wish they could be a fly in the wall if they weren't around at that time. So anyway, I could take my family members to Tab who like music, and you got that funk and you got that jazz and that soul. And even though Trey is playing Carini, right, they're still going to enjoy it because you have just that big band feel at times. And Carini was, obviously, I've only been to two shows, but I've been wanting to see it. I love Dark Fish. I love Dark Fish. Dark Fish is the best fish. Page side, Rage side. I like Raging Page, and I love the fans who get on his side in the pit. And then I also just love Dark Fish, and this was amazing. It reminds me of, because Carini was what that was in the encore. So Carini, let me just make sure. Yeah, it was the encore. This was like when my first show. I didn't think I was gonna get Wilson. I mean, listen, I would have, if you would have told me if I could have picked, I would have loved to have. But like Wilson, not as dark as Carini, but just that like rock dark feel. I loved Wilson. It was one of my favorite, like that Wilson, David Bowie and Wilson in the encore. My first Phish show is one of the highlights, and Divided Sky. But having this Carini close out and having the Dark Fish feel with Tab there, with Rick there, with the whole Tab, I mean the whole Goose crew on stage pulled up like it was it looked like one of the like when I've gone to some rap shows at the clubs, and you have like 50 people on stage just tearing it up. You got guys spitting and guys in the background hyping them up, and like it was a whole vibe. So like listen to this. When you hear that da 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 da, I was like, yo, it's going down. So let's see this. Yeah, yeah, it's like both bands. Yeah.
Sometimes you just need two voices. This is one of those things.
And right there, you know what's great about that? Da 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 da. And I was learning Carini on my guitar. Having the two basses and having James Casey on that Barry, that was like, yo, this is lit. To have that great sax choice by James Casey, to have that deep, dark Barry as Trey is playing on the bass notes of his electric guitar on that top string, the top E. right there. Also love how they allow this is where Trey's guitar is the focal point. Obviously, we'll get to later, and um you'll see Rick and Trey do their little thing, but the horns allow Trey to shine. They're not overpowering, and but they still are there. And the basses are in the back, just with the foundation, and all the percussion folks just in the back as well, being lit and doing their thing. And like, again, subtle things. And I love, I mean, this is obviously what everyone picks up with Trey, but I love the sustain on his electric guitar, it's overdriven. He plays it almost like it's like a violin that's just floating out into space, right? And he even, I believe that's why he's constructed that guitar, the semi hollow guitar, to really, he is specifically made to sound that unique, where it just sounds like he's writing out. He can write out a note, it sustains, right? It sustains out and it just floats out into the universe like a laser. And then he gets to some, like, he'll do a quick lick, he'll get back to that, he gives space, and then he goes in on a little lick, and he gives space, and he gets a little bit on a lick, and he gives space. And it's like, it feels like you're going down, like it's like Tony Hawk's Downhill Jam, or like you're going downhill, you're in backcountry on skis or a snowboard, and you're just riding this thing down. You're just riding this train downhill in backcountry on your snowboard or your skis, and it's free and it's infinite, and there's no path. That's what every Trey run feels like. It's just, you're just cruising, and you do a little lick, and you're cruising, and you do a little lick, and he has the skills to snowboard in backcountry of Vermont, and there's no trail signs, that no one can rescue you, right? If an avalanche happens, that's it, right? It's just such a free, expressive way of playing. And again, just love these harmonies and melodies. So this was a great experience. I want to dive more into the actual songs, the different eras of Phish, the different there's a lot of great resources on Twitter, and the Goose Twitter community, to really, I want to dive into more of that. Shane says this, right? Goose, Billy Strings, Brandy Carlisle, all blowing up. We're in such a great time of music. Absolutely. And that's what you have. You do have Billy Strings, another person I need to see live. Brandy Carlisle, I just saw her at Sound on Sound. I saw her back in 2013 opening up for Dave Matthews Band. So it's amazing to see the progression. There's a lot of great musicians. We have to understand the wheel can only be invented in so many different ways. So a lot of times it's easy to try to critique and do different things. But what Goose brings with Billy Strings, Brandy Carlisle, even the revivalists, I love what the revivalists are doing. New Orleans has some great young acts, and I'm talking about the last 15 years. Um, I mean, you have Trombone Shorty, right? You've had there was a band called Mute Math. They opened up. I've seen them a couple times open up for some bands that I like. They unfortunately are no longer together. But New Orleans has really, between the Revivalists, Mute Math, Preservation Hall Jazz Band, which I guess has been around, but they're really starting to get more and more love now. Trombone Shorty, like New Orleans is really creating. It's always created great musicians, but there's a whole new wave I've seen in the last 10, 15 years from there, and I'm sure there's more I'm missing, but it's always been a world class. But I love the Revivalists. They have that sax and they have slide guitar, and actually they were just at Fenway Music Hall. There's a new venue, MGM Fenway. MGM and Fenway collab to make this new venue, and it's very cool. They had Bruno Mars play there, like they have some big names playing there this year, just to kind of promote people to go. They will probably never play that venue again, but so Wax Bill says was skeptical at first, but really bring something special out in the other. It's crazy, yeah. And listen, I understand there's a lot of people that have been skeptical of Goose. Listen, I get it. The jam band world has had different acts come up and then they kind of stall out. There's just something different about Goose. It takes time. It takes time to really understand that, to see them live, and really see what's going on. And some people that are older in age, they may not fully understand Dripfield, the album. They're like, whatever. But what's happening is you're getting people into Goose people are diving into Goose for many different ways. And for Trey, the last thing I'll close on, think about this. And everyone knows this. I'm not, who am I telling? You guys know more than me, right? I'm only a decade into seeing jam bands like String Cheese and Umphreys and that. Like, but Trey listen, everyone who plays in a jam band of some sort most likely knows Phish and Trey Anastasio, right? But who can say that Trey shows up to their Radio City Music Hall opener, their first Radio City Music Hall run ever, sold out, and comes in and plays on some songs? Like, who inspires Trey that much? It's kind of like John Mayer and Dead and Company and all that. Obviously, Trey played with the Grateful Dead for Fare Thee Well. But how does Bob Weir pull John Mayer? And obviously he pulls, like, O'Teal was with Allman Brothers, so that was like an easy choice. Jeff Cheminetti has been in the Grateful Dead universe. He's not like a worldwide solo star. But think about how, at least I think Dead and Company has ran their course. I'll go to their final tour stop. One of the final tour stops this upcoming year. It's time. It is beyond time. They did what they needed to do. It's time to wrap it up, fam. Right? And that's because Bob's older. And listen, I feel bad because we want to hear these guys play forever, and they still will. But Dead and Company, it's time to wrap it up, family. And I love John Mayer. I love the Dead. I think Phil and Friends, because they have such more of a younger base, is a more, that's an act I'd rather see than Dead and Company, to be honest, right? Past this year, I think Dead and Company wrap it up, finish on this little high, piece up, A-Town down. But think about how John Mayer brought this new joy out of the Dead, and the Dead brought something new out of John Mayer. I have been a John Mayer fan since 2007, 2008. And I've seen, since he's been with the Dead, his sets have taken a new life. Acoustic sets in the middle, playing a whole album front to back, taking chances and trying to mix up sets even further than what he was doing because of Dead and Company. Right? You say, I wonder how, I think here's my thing with Mayer, and this is something I know much more about. John Mayer may definitely hop in and guess with other people, but I think John Mayer wants it's best for him to write out his solo music for right now. And here's the cool thing about Mayer. I've seen him do one of my highest viewed videos, and I love capturing videos to share with you guys, for free, right? Nothing's behind a paywall. I love sharing this music with you guys. I think John Mayer is going to continue to tour as a solo artist, but you will see him continue to do the Grateful Dead covers. John Mayer's touring band is amazing. David Ryan Harris, who's by himself a great R&B artist, on acoustic guitar and electric guitar. Isaiah Sharkey, who I saw at Hartford Jazz Fest this year, and I've seen obviously John Mayer a bunch of times. I think he's gonna play his solo stuff. You may see him guest in, but I just think that it's he's at a point in his life where, listen, he's a Grammy winning, and forget because Grammys are subjective, but John Mayer is a world class musician. He is the guy. I'm 32. Everyone my age, if we had a strap, most likely it was because of John Mayer or John Frusciante, right? One of those two, right? That's why we have a strap. Like Clapton didn't get us to get a strap. Maybe some of the kids who have older, their fathers into that. We got strats because of John Mayer. We play that pickup position at the neck because of John Mayer, right? We have our tube screamer because John Mayer. We may have an aquapus delay because that's what John Mayer uses, right? The Klein Senator, right? We want that. That is the most coveted pedal for some of us because John Mayer was that guitarist that at least I grew up with as a millennial born in 1990. When I started picking up that guitar when I was 18 years old, and some kids it was 15, 16, it was John Frusciante, right, from the Chili Peppers, or John Mayer. And they had that cover with Derek Trucks, John Mayer, and Frusciante all there. Those were influential guitarists, but specifically Frusciante and Mayer for a certain style. Anyway, I say all that to say that I think he'll do his solo stuff. He'll do solo summer. That's what I miss with John. I've seen John in the spring, and I'm like, oh, this is great. I want some more shows. And you're going to see that, like, I've seen the transition from the Dead fans that started going to John Mayer shows with their daughters and their sons or by themselves. And I think some of them will still follow John. I think he should still do Dead covers. He should focus in. He has so much great music. And the cool thing about Mayer, in my opinion, I don't need to see a different set every night, even though he can do that. By all means, if he does that, I'm happy too. But he just has great songs that he can play. Yeah, you may have Gravity in every show, or Slow Dancing in a Burning Room is essentially played in every show, but it sounds great every time. So he is just a guitar virtuoso of his generation. You could say what you want about him. You could say other people are better, but he puts together a package unlike anyone else there. So that's but good question. Thank you for asking that, Wax Beetle. So yeah, that's where I'm at with this. Is I just think that it's special that Trey decided to say, hey, I want to tour with Goose. This is his inspiration. And this may bring out Phish. Like, obviously, the big thing this year, listening to the experts, I'm not an expert, I'm a noob, but the micro jams of 2022. And also just the fact it didn't matter necessarily what song was played for Phish, they had great jams. So it'll be interesting to see how Trey takes this TAB and Goose experience, and goes from here. And it'll be interesting to see what Goose does now that they've had this special tour, now that they're blowing up unlike they've ever thought they could. Maybe they believed in themselves, they thought they'd be big. But listen, jam bands out of Connecticut don't just blow up, and I'm proud of them. I'm proud of, like, Mayer and Goose, they're at different levels of their career. But when someone's from CT and they're repping my home state, and they're getting to this level, John Mayer, I saw him go up, and now I'm seeing Goose rise up. I am very proud of them. To say, because they're from the same streets that I'm from. Well, they're from the southern Connecticut. I'm from Central. I'm in Hartford. But still, it's Connecticut, and it's a unique spot in between Boston and New York. We have access to so much music. I can go to Boston I remember going to, I see Billy Joel at Madison Square Garden. Then I go up to Boston, go up to, Mansfield, Great Woods, Xfinity Center. I'll go up to, the TD Garden. There's the Wang Theater. There's the pavilion out by the ocean front, or the waterfront, seaport. You can see so much music. I can go to the Capitol Theater. I am within 3 hours of a lot of great music venues, like Mohegan Sun. So it's a special thing when you grow up here, when you're playing music, you can see all these stars in the biggest stages of Boston and New York. And I'm glad that Goose has got here. But we'll see what happens. I think this is a great tour for both acts. And for Trey, when he goes back to Phish, I think this is something that brings him the joy to come off something like this TAB and Goose tour, and then you go back on stage with for the New Year's Eve run, right? Inspired by what you heard, and obviously Goose has the New Year's Eve run in Cincinnati, which is kind of like it's like a Jesus Christ situation. Was all the other major cities full?
What are you doing?
Like, why would you want to have a New Year's Eve party so close to the state of Kentucky? Like, it's right across the river is Kentucky. Just kidding. Hey, shout out to everyone in Kentucky, but not really. but no. Yeah, y'all cool out there. Right? Hey, you gave us Chris Stapleton. But the point is, both of these groups have some New Year's runs in December that'll be great coming off this tour. But that's all I have for you. It's your boy Conservist 34. We'll finish off Carini and turn off this. If you like this stuff, stay tuned. I will try to dive deeper into Goose, into Phish next year. I had some videos. Obviously, Dave Matthews Band is my main drag. I'll be on here tonight, 11:45 p.m. Central Time. That's 12:45 Eastern Time to talk about the Dave Matthews Band show going on right now. Shane, I know you're going to be checking me out there. I'm glad you're back safe in Colorado. The band is going through their fall tour with controversy of set lists, although they have So Right back in the rotation. So much to say, bridge too much. So this show is already starting off great. So yeah, hit the like button, subscribe. If you not, I won't say it here, but there is I have a Cash App controversy for. But listen, you guys, for this group, you guys, the Tab and the Goose folks, I know you guys. This is your first experience. I ain't gonna tell you to donate, but and I don't need the money. But people have always said, wanted to support me, and but anyway, Cash App's Conservist 34, like the handle. Anyway, so I did plug it. Anyway, let me shut up. We'll close out on this Carini, and if you like this stuff, stay tuned. And if you don't like Dave Matthews Band, there'll be more content outside of DMB as I continue to discover Trey, Phish, Goose, Trey Solo, or Rebel. I can't even say it, right? That I want to really see them. I regret not going to one of their shows in Norwalk earlier this fall, but I just couldn't make it. But I really wish I went. So anyway, stay tuned. More to come throughout this year into next year. It's your boy Conservist 34. Let's see the rest of this Carini. Peace.